It's one of the busiest times of the year as it relates to NBA trades. Going into the NBA draft, players needing to exercise or decline their player options, and every year you walk away from blockbuster trades leading up to the draft and you think, how did this team get away with that fleecing? And that's exactly what I simply cannot wrap my head around, and how the Boston Celtics were able to pull off what they did in the massive haul they were able to get for Marcus Smart. And it's what we'll be talking about in this video. If you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. And I'll be putting out content all off season long. Now, it was an interesting turn of events as it relates to Kristaps Porzingis being moved to the Celtics. The Wizards and KP were up against a timeline of midnight last night for him to decline or exercise his player option, and the idea was to have him pick up the player option and then be traded so that a team could acquire his bird rights. And initially it looked like it was all but concluded that Porzingis was going to be moved to the Celtics in a 3-team deal where KP would go to the Celtics, Brogdon was going to be moved to the Clippers, while the Wizards were going to be receiving draft compensation along with Danilo Gallinari and some salary filler. And just when you thought the deal was all but done, media reporters were probably putting together their articles to cover the breaking news, the deal fell through. The Wizards and the Celtics ended talks with the Clippers, but quickly pivoted by working with the Memphis Grizzlies and were able to get a deal done before midnight. Now, here are the deals of the trade at the time of this recording anyway, as some details generally come out after the fact with additional players to fill salary or small forms of draft compensation. But this features the Boston Celtics walking away with Porzingis, 2 first-round picks, yes, 2 picks from the Grizzlies, their own pick at number 25 in tonight's draft, and a 2024 first-round pick from the Golden State Warriors. The Wizards are getting Tyus Jones, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, the number 35 pick in this year's draft, and then the Grizzlies are getting Marcus Smart. So I repeat, the Boston Celtics got Porzingis, 2 first-round picks, and all they had to do was give up Marcus Smart. And look, I get it. Taking on a guy like Porzingis, who is an injury-prone player and on an expiring deal and is going to be looking to get paid, taking him on is risky, again, with his injury history. And yes, he is a flawed player, but the man is actually coming off one of his best seasons where he put up over 23 points per game on solid efficiency, both finishing around the basket and shooting it from deep at 38% on over 5 attempts per game from 3. Yeah, his shot blocking isn't what it used to be with all of his injuries over the years, but he still gives the Celtics some added rim protection as well. Another solid rebounder. Like, yes, it's a risk, but it's a high risk, high reward scenario if KP can stay healthy and consistently produce while giving the Celtics another scoring option and some size, which they severely lacked given all of their centers and power forward options were no taller than 6'9", with the exception of Luke Cornett. But not only were they able to add Porzingis to the deal, they got 2 first-round picks. I know they're late first-rounders. Well, at least we know the first one is the 25th pick, and then the pick from Golden State Warriors next year will probably be a mid to late first-rounder unless the Warriors totally bomb and fall into the lottery. You got all of that in return for Marcus Smart. Don't get me wrong, letting Smart go is not easy for a team like the Celtics, a man who has been the heart and soul of that team, one of the hardest working players you'll see on that roster, a veteran voice and leader. Like, there is more to basketball than just your play. There is something to be said about the impact you bring off the court as a leader, and Smart was one of those guys for Boston, and losing him hurts. But man, that's some insane value for Marcus Smart. Generally speaking, all-stars are the types of players that fetch you multiple first-round picks, and not only did Smart net 2 picks, but you also got one of the better bigs in the league in Kristaps Porzingis. What's funny is that I actually don't like the fit as much as others are saying is this perfect fit that Porzingis will be in Boston. I think he'll definitely help with some of their areas and weaknesses, especially as it relates to their post presence on both ends of the floor, as well as the floor spacing that he provides as a big. But I don't consider this to be a game changer for the Celtics by any means, considering he's not really polished with his footwork around the paint, and he can be inconsistent at times with his shooting as well. And the most important piece, availability. I mean, since Porzingis tore his ACL back in 2018, he's barely been able to play more than 50% of games in a season. Last season, he played 65 games, which is the most we have seen from him since his days in New York. And availability is everything, especially when you're getting paid $36 million. But either way, I still like the move for the Celtics, especially considering they snagged 2 first-round picks in the deal. I just don't think KP is this amazing fit on the roster that everyone is making him out to be. As for the other teams involved in the trade, I mean, let's start with the Grizzlies. They land Marcus Smart. They had to give up 2 first-round picks and Tyus Jones, who they sent to the Wizards in the deal. Yeah, not really a fan of this trade for them. I get it. The Grizzlies need a veteran voice, a hustle player, a player who is going to get in your ear when you're not working hard enough. And given the state of the Grizzlies and their roster, immature, they've crumbled in the playoffs. You need a player with playoff experience that is going to guide some of these younger players through the ups and downs. And given that Ja is not going to be available for the first 25 games due to his suspension, having a player like Smart to run the point while he's out, that's a good thing. And given the Grizzlies are going to be losing Dillon Brooks since they've said he won't be coming back under any circumstances, adding Smart as a defensive stopper to maintain the Grizzlies' hard-nosed defense as one of the best defensive teams in the league, he makes up for that, but still, a lot to give up for a player like Smart, who is going to be 30 years old next season. 2 picks and a younger player and a solid point guard, I might add, in Tyus Jones. I'm not saying it's a terrible trade, but it's certainly not the best given the value they got in return for those picks. You'd have to think 2 picks, even if they are late first rounders, could have netted you a more prominent player. And then for the Wizards, I mean, they're blowing it up. They're going into a full rebuild, which is the right call, I might add. The Wizards have literally been in NBA purgatory for nearly a decade, now sort of living in sort of that 8 to 11 spot in the East. Tearing it all down is the way to go. But man, only getting Tyus Jones and a second-round pick for Porzingis is horrendous. I get it that they didn't have much leverage, just like the Bradley Beal trade, given they were hard-pressed on a deadline with KP to pick up his option. And yes, Porzingis' value is probably not as high as most people think, given there is always the injury risk, but also the fact that he's on an expiring deal and a player that you're going to need to pay a big extension to so you don't lose him as a one-year rental, which very well could be the case for the Celtics, I might add, given all the salary they have on their books and the fact that Jaylen Brown is going to be due for a fat extension, potentially a supermax extension, given he was selected to the All-NBA. But regardless of the lower than expected value for KP, that's inexcusable that you weren't able to walk away with a first round pick. You're rebuilding the team and you have one of your best players that a team wants, and you get a second round pick and an above average role player in Tyus Jones, who is also on an expiring deal, I might add. Now, they very well could flip Jones for some more assets, so we'll see what happens on that, but I just don't see how the Wizards, a team that is committed to rebuilding, between Bradley Beal and Porzingis, weren't even able to land a first-round pick in either of those deals. I get it, the leverage isn't there. You would see in most cases in trade, given the circumstances around Beal's no trade clause, KP needing to pick up his player option and get traded right away, but that's inexcusable for a front office to have your 2 best players go and have a handful of second-round picks and salary filler to show for it. Not only that, but they're also going to let one of their other better players on the roster walk for nothing in Kyle Kuzma, who declined his player option. Sure, they could execute a sign and trade, and that very well could happen considering there aren't many teams with cap space to afford Kuzma, especially with the kind of salary that he's going to be looking for. Kuzma has been reported to seek a contract in the range of $30 million per year, which is pretty insane, but then again, with the way contracts are being handed out under the new cap increases, you also can't be too surprised. But either way, the Wizards, who finally said enough is enough, we're blowing it up, starting fresh, they're going to lose their 3 best players with some second-round picks to show for. I know it's a new front office, but that is malpractice on their part to start this rebuild in that fashion. I don't care how little leverage you had in the situation or the fact that they dumped Beal's salary to start over. That is the weakest haul we have seen from a team initiating a rebuild by trading away their best players. The Utah Jazz got 8 first-round picks and Lauri Markkanen by trading their best players in Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And I know Beal and Kristaps Porzingis aren't on those guys' level, and I think we can all agree that the Jazz absolutely fleeced the Wolves in that deal for Rudy Gobert, but still 8 first-round picks, and the Wizards haven't been able to get one, and not even some solid young players to show for it. It's just baffling to me. But anyway, I like this trade for the Celtics. Excellent value for Marcus Smart. Going to be weird seeing him in a different jersey other than Celtics. He's going to have to dye his hair a different color now. I think it's decent for the Grizzlies because they are getting one of the better defenders in the league and a veteran player who will hopefully fix some of the culture issues that exist in Memphis. And then for the Wizards, yeah, just bad. This has to be one of the worst rebuild triggers we have seen in decades with the return in draft capital and young players that they're receiving for it. But let me know what you guys think of the trade. How would you grade this for each of the 3 teams? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.